Shalom Aleichem, this is Rabbi Kovek's Mishnah continues for Shabbat Vayera. We're in chapter 3 of Yevamot, Mishnah 9. Shlosha Achim, 3 brothers, Nisuin Shalosh Nochriot. They're married to 3 completely unrelated women. We'll call them Rachel and Miriam and Sally. Met Echad Mehen. Nebuch, one of the brothers, died without children, so now there's a Yibam situation. The also Hasheni Maamar. And the next brother does Maamar. As we've explained, this is a rabbinic level kiddushin. They're getting married on a rabbinic level. They haven't fully affected Yibam yet. Va met, and unfortunately, he died also before they actually got fully married in Yibam. So now we have Rachel, the widow of the first brother, who also received a Maamar from the second brother, and we have Miriam, the widow of the second brother, and they both fall to Yibam in front of the last surviving brother. So the Mishnah teaches, Harei elu holtzot velo mityabmot. They both require a chalitza before they can marry outside, but they cannot be married in Yibam. Why? Shenemar, there's a pasuk says, Umet echad mehen. When one of the brothers dies, Yevama yavo aleha. That's when the surviving brother can marry her. The Mishnah explains, She'aleha zikat yavam echad. That on what this verse is hinting is that on her, on this widow, is a zikah, a connection, an obligation of yavam echad, of one brother only. Velo she'aleha zikat shnei yavamin, but not that she has a connection to 2 deceased brothers. This is met echad mehen. Only one of them has a connection to the widow. That's when we have a yibam. And here, Rachel, who was the widow of the first brother to die, has a zikah from that family, from the original family, her first husband, but then she was also, through Maamar, kind of married to the second brother, who also died. So there's 2 obligations, in the sense there's 2 brothers that deceased, and the third brother has an obligation to both situations, to both households that he's trying to rebuild through the mitzvah of Yibam, but he can't, because the pasuk says only when there's 1 household, not 2. Rabbi Shimon says, Miyabim le'eze sheyirtze v'cholitz l'shniya, that the third brother, the last surviving brother, can do Yibam to either woman, to Rachel, the first widow, or to Miriam, the second widow from the second brother, and do chalitza to the other one. Now, this is fascinating because this is a new understanding of zikah, of the bond that binds them together, and the ma'amar, the effect of doing ma'amar, the rabbinical level of kiddushin. Now, recall in Mishnah Hay in this chapter, we said that according to Beit Shammai, the Girsa of the Mishnah, Beit Shammai said, in a case where they did ma'amar, ishto imo, it's as if they're fully married. Okay, fine, it's rabbinic, but it's as if they're fully married, and it could knock out an erva from falling to yibam. Beit Hillel says, no, it's not as if they're married, and it's going to be a problem. So we see there that sort of there's an understanding either ma'amar is very strong or ma'amar is fairly weak, still some kind of marital bond, but a weaker level. But Rabbi Shimon here has a totally different understanding. According to Rabbi Shimon, ma'amar is all or nothing. It either affects a real marriage or it doesn't really do anything, but it's kind of a nice thing to give the Yevama, the widow, a ring before they go to huppah and get married in Yibam. It's a pleasant thing, but it's not a legally binding thing. And therefore, according to Rabbi Shimon's understanding of the power of Maamar being up for grabs, being all or nothing, so either Rachel was fully married in Maamar, and now both Rachel and Miriam are equally falling for Yibam and could be married by the last surviving brother, or it did nothing, and she was never really married to the second brother, and so now it's as if Rachel is still the widow of the first brother, and Miriam is still the widow only of the second brother, and there's 2 different brothers, 2 different situations that are totally separate because the Maamar didn't link the Rachel to the second brother at all. Now the Mishnah goes on, brings an unrelated case, Shnei Ochi Nesuin L'Shtei Achayu, 2 brothers married to 2 sisters, Umet Echad Mehen, 1 brother dies with no children, V'achar Kach Meta Ishto Shel Sheni, and afterwards the wife of the surviving brother passes away. Now, the prohibition of marrying the sister of somebody's wife is only effective when the wife is alive. If the wife passed away, a man could technically marry the sister. So you might have thought in this case, since his wife, who was the sister, passed away, they could go ahead and do Yibam. Harezo asur alav olamit. But no, it's forbidden always for them to do Yibam forever. Holo v'nestra alav sha achat. Because when she originally fell to Yibam, when she was eligible for Yibam, the sister was still alive. The wife was the sister of the Yevamot, so no Yibum is possible. Let's go on to Mishnah Yud. Shnaim shekidshu shtei nashim. Two men married two women through kiddushin. Recall, kiddushin is the first stage of marriage, typically effected by giving a ring, as we'll learn about in Masechet Kiddushin, but this is much more than the modern-day engagement. Nowadays, we actually do kiddushin under the huppah on the day of the wedding before we recite all the blessings. But 2,000 years ago, it was normal to do the kiddushin for a number of months or even a year before the actual wedding. We'll see this in Chaye Sarah coming up very soon, that Eliezer goes and he brings kiddushin. He brings money to be Mekadesh Rivka, and then her family members suggest that she stays with them for another year, or at least 10 months, to prepare for marriage, and she voluntarily wants to go immediately to marry Yitzchak, to marry Isaac. So here in the Mishnah, the kiddushin, the first stage of marriage, went off perfectly well, but Bishat Knisat on the chuppah, when they were bringing these two women to the chuppah, hechlifu et shel zeh lezeh ve'et shel zeh lezeh. There was a horrible mistake. We can imagine maybe it came up. There were two wedding halls. One was upstairs and one was downstairs. And they were getting very ready, and everyone was wearing a very thick veil, and it's dark, and there's not a lot of lights. And they told one bride, to go upstairs, and she should have gone downstairs, and vice versa. So what ended up is these two women are already married through Kiddushin. They're already a married woman. But then when they went to chuppah, the second stage of marriage, to start living together as man and wife, they made a mistake. So the Mishnah says, what are the consequences? Hare elu hayavim mishum eshet ish. They need to bring a carbon hatat, an offering that's brought, a sin offering that's brought by for a mistake. This is the same offering we mentioned over and over in Masechet Shabbat if somebody breaches the laws of the Sabbath by mistake. So hayu achin, if they were two brothers, also mishum eshet ach. They need to bring another offering because they lived with the wife of their brother. Now, of course, in Yibum, we do marry the former wife, the widow of the brother, but that's because the brother has already passed away and now she's a widow. Im hayu achayot, if these two girls were sisters, mishum isha el achota. As the pasuk says, you can't marry a woman on her sister, meaning when her sister is already married to you. So then they'd be liable to bring three different offerings. Im hayu nidot, if they were in their week of menstruation, mishum nida. That would be an additional offering that needed to be brought to atone for this horrible mix-up. The Gemara explains that normally we don't say Isser Halal Isser. When something is already forbidden, you need to bring an offering. We don't usually put people in double jeopardy, but there are things like Isser Kola, Isser Mosif. There's various types of prohibitions that sort of expand or add on that would actually bring people into double jeopardy, or in this case, quadruple jeopardy. Now the Mishnah continues, Mafrishin Otan Shosha Chodashim. We have them separate from their real husband, the Kiddushin husband, for 3 months. Shema me'ubarot hen, because, God forbid, maybe they got pregnant from the wrong man, the man who really was not their husband. If they're very young, before they're fertile, or they're not able to have children, then they would be able to go back right away, because we're not concerned they became pregnant from a different man, because, God forbid, there's serious consequences for that happening. The Mishnah concludes, Im hayu kohanot, if they were the daughters of a kohanic family, a priestly family, nifsalu min hatruma. They can't go back to eat truma in their father's household. Normally the rule is if the daughter of a Kohen who grew up eating truma, because her father's a Kohen, if she marries a Yisrael, it's a step down, but maybe he's a great guy. But then if he passes away with no children, she could go back and live in her father's household and eat truma again. But here, since she had relations with a man who, by mistake, was not her husband, she's not allowed to eat truma anymore. Yashar Koach and Shabbat Shalom Avrach.